Our next panel, Antiki Haufili Moyatu and Michael Perry.
Okay, wow. Well, that's a hard act to follow. And how many of them? And only get 2 of us.
And plus, we are at the elders end of the scale, not at the next generation. So indulge us and try and listen. We may have a little wisdom.
So by the grace of God, technically, Mike and I are here. And I think our vision is a little bit maybe different. And for us, it's very urgent. So we're looking at now. And we try to look at, but I think thinking between us, one who is born and raised and will always be here, one who is a visitor, typical Hawaii, right? The visitor and the local. So this is supposed to be a conversation, they said, for us to talk story about labor. We will get to that too. But I told him it's not Hawaiian. It's so rude if we gonna talk story, only us two and not involve anyone. So please feel free to ask questions, interject, and make sure you get the question and the answer, and let us know. But my name is Kay Hall, born and raised here. I will always be here. I've been a civil servant for a long time, and those of you who work public, that's where I'm from. So we're supposed to be talking about unions and
Now you want me to talk about unions, because I come out of the union.
Oh, me too.
Right.
I thought
So-
I thought I wrote, I think I'm wearing the wrong shirt. But that's okay.
I'm Michael Perry, and I think I was asked here because for 20 or so years I have worked with pension trustees on issues of helping them to build what I heard from Neil and Bumpy about the network and the ecosystem that's essential to helping an individual who may or may not have a lot of financial wisdom to survive within the financial world. And that's really how I come to be here today.
See, we're both retirees. And so,
Our checks arrived today.
And so what it is after working for years and years and supposedly putting into this pension fund that they take out from your paycheck, now it's supposed to be, give that time, and we're supposed to be able to live and sustain ourselves on whatever is there. I think I was just telling Mike that, a lot of us in Hawaii who all belong to or have very close connections to our ERS, or retirement services, as well as resources, are not really that akamai in really being critical and or knowledgeable about just what goes in there from your paycheck. It's not the FICA. And what goes in there, that I can add to. Is it an IRA that I did on my own or not? So that's part of the education, and I think the awareness. We want our people in Hawaii, both private sectors, to understand that. Because I know construction guys, they get annuities, $1 million right after they retire. And so that's another kind of resource that you got to rely on before you die.
So if I can, I'm going to go a little into my history and how I got involved in working with trustees, if that's all right. I really came to the financial world as a warrior. I come out of the tradition of something called capital strategies, and capital strategies is an effort to struggle with corporations to have them change their behavior to be more community-oriented. And those of you who have some experience in this world, we probably remember the fight against apartheid in South Africa. That was part of my tradition. That was a whole element of shareholder activism where a lot of big endowments and pension funds got involved in struggling to change the behavior of the government, right? And that was sort of part of my beginning. But as I began to work with pensioners and trustees, I realized that that warrior mode wasn't necessarily the only mode for engagement, and that one of the keys to sort of building an ecosystem to change the way finance is dealt with is to engage in a concept that is a little more close to Ahupuaa. And that is something that
That was one of the first things I was going to ask you guys for do. For pronounce that. Ahupuaa. It's phonetics, Rose. I know, because that was kind of getting me. It's really there. Because if you struggle to really pronounce it correctly, you don't get them. Where it is needed and how it works. So we all
Okay. You're all part of this. Thank you. We talked about, at that point, capital stewardship, which is a form of protecting the environment and protecting the resources that we have. I think that part of what was important about taking that approach was that every union trustee I dealt with was isolated and didn't have a support network. I don't know, are there people out there who are involved in pension funds or who are trustees? Are there people out that's good to know? And is it your experience that your ideas, you need other people to talk to about that? So, and how do you find those other people?
Well, so I work on the investment team, so we work globally with a number of different investment managers, consultants.
Okay. And do you have programs as part of the investment team to train the trustees?
Yeah.
I asked you about training, and you said?
Yeah, there's a training program.
There are training programs for trustees
And conferences, yeah.
and conferences. But I think that the core of what we're trying to talk about here is that if you have an alternative view, if this, I'm going to say it wrong again, Auntie, so you're going to have to bear with me.
we still love you.
I feel the love, but I also feel the inadequacy. So I apologize to all of you, but where is the investment fund on Ahupuaa?
Is anybody here from ERS?
Yes.
He's going to be
Oh, you're Okamoto.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. First time I saw him this time. No, and just, just to get that, I only retired about 2 years ago, and I really didn't know about ERS and then all that stuff. And then what happened was, you know how you go in and you try to check how much is in your pension fund, right? And you do that. And for us in Hawaii, we're kind of lackadaisical, so we actually almost assume that everything's going honky-dory. What I came upon was that, we have millions of dollars there. We did a big investment into Amazon. And it made us money. But at the time that was going through, which was about, 2-3 years ago, people like Amazon take out mom and pop stores. So we saw the demise of like the Nora Market or Oka Supermarket, things that I was used to going to do shopping with, and they closed because they could not compete. So that was something I thought, I'm not sure that's what I would want my children to miss out on, because my retirement fund said, we'll be better off doing outside investments. But thank you for coming.
So what, did you organize with people to struggle against that investment?
like, I did an op-ed just to bring it about, but no, like I said again, a lot of us here in Hawaii are rather, I don't want to say complacent, but we're not knowledgeable enough to really criticize and critique the ERS and what they do with our monies, like other pension funds might.
So, what kind of support would be helpful, do you think? I mean, one of the things that in my experience, unions have done is they've gone out and educated their members on various activities, on how finance works. What other things might be helpful in Hawaii?
Well, I think that's very important. And yeah, I'm going to try to push for that. I think, because, you know, I'm a retiree, but in the retiree unit of HGEA, for instance. And we do what we call education and technical classes. And I think that might be something good, because if you get the pressure from your people that are part of that, then you can, you know, perhaps get some change, or at least some education. And I agree with everything and anything we're talking about here. The first thing in E should be education. Because a lot of us, we really don't understand what the E, S, and the G means. And then when you start to talk about it, because you're looking at somebody else coming in and investing as well, and we really want to have more investment from ourselves, which is how we would do with our different resources.
Support for streaming comes from Shawnee University.
All right, support for streaming. You have a question over there?
Yeah, is this on? I thank you for that comment about the investment first coming from our community. I agree. My question is about exploring and better understanding the human health impacts of climate change. I have a background in green building that has a very extensive domain of practice in the indoor air quality space. Many studies of which show that humans begin to experience acute cognitive impairment at levels as low as 700 parts per million. We're now at 410 at the top of Mauna Loa, which means that in urbanized areas, those concentrations are actually potentially quite higher. I have done anecdotal research exploring what the experience of being an outdoor laborer is. From what some county workers and others have told me, it's pretty brutal. Between chronic overheating and potential carbon toxicity, I think that there is a valid concern for the health of outdoor laborers as climate change accelerates. And so I have been exploring partnership opportunities with some large companies and tech companies to develop continuous monitoring technology and pH monitoring for carbon toxicity. And when I tried to reach out to the unions about this, the laborers that I've talked to have been extremely receptive and have asked for help. The unions that I've talked to have all basically turned their backs on me. And I don't know why, and so I would love to better understand if it's the approach, or if there's if I'm misunderstanding the responsibility or the purpose of the unions.
So I have two responses to that question. One is I don't know the particular local political union situation well, so what I have to do is be more general in my response. The other is that most union leaders are under severe and profound time constraints, and their ability to, as with anyone, to incorporate new information is limited. And it is a matter of trying to have your kind of information put into an appropriate forum And perhaps there's a way through the union members to bring that issue up on a bigger level within the union. But it's also, the union does not exist separate from the community. And who else in the community finds this as a big issue? Because what I found early on with helping trustees was that they were all members of churches. They were all, or some faith organization. They all had community commitments. And when the community and the trustee were able to talk together, the union would be more engaged with some of the issues. So it is not an easy task to get a new agenda item like that on the table. And I admire your perseverance in going for it. I'm glad to talk a little one-on-one after and see if I have any useful ideas to you in particular.
Ditto. I mean, you have some people, you have minds here that are possibly very much like yours and able to talk to or sit down one-on-one, like how Mike says.
There seems to be reliance here on talking about the unions doing things. It seems that the union leadership is very much involved with year-to-year salary changes, working conditions, etc., and do not necessarily have a long-term horizon, which is what investments are about. Can you give examples where somehow we can change the pension systems so that you can look at that long-term thing and get union leadership? Or maybe union leaders cannot do it. To begin taking that long-term investment approach for the best benefit of the whole community as well as their employees. Here in Hawaii, our ERS system is very poor in communicating back to the public, allowing their workers even to get input into the retirement system to make any necessary changes. They tell the workers how to get the best pension layout when they retire, but this interaction does not exist.
May I go again, or do you want?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so you asked a lot of questions there. There are individual unions have individual strengths at how they approach this sort of activity. I think that there is a challenge of density in dealing with financial issues. And I was fortunate to come up in this work in California, where there's 87 pension funds and hundreds of unions. And there were groups of trustees that were willing to get together from different pension funds so that union-oriented pension trustees were able to work together. And they did two things. One, they reinforced each other and helped each other get smarter about how to deal with short-term thinking. And they went back to their unions, caused a little ruckus sometimes, but pushed them to be more thoughtful on having a long-term perspective. This is an ongoing struggle in every institution, the balance between short and long-term investment horizons. And thank you for making that one of the very clear points I know that there are incredible housing and investment trusts run by building trades unions that they really put a lot of energy into so that their members can keep working and so that there's more affordable housing for many working people. Other unions have focused on holding corporations accountable, some on environmental issues. I've not heard anybody working specifically on air quality at this point. Some on healthcare issues for their members. I've seen that more in the industrial unions. Some on job creation. There is always a certain element of short-termism in the strategic approaches that we take because we live in a political world and we have to survive politically. But there are many institutions, and there's somebody in the audience who is much more adept at thinking and talking about this than I am. That's Damon in the front row here, who This will be a one-on-one conversation with you. You can be, they would be much better one-on-one than being up here. I have to be a little politically correct here. This is a challenge. You are not wrong. But you also said something else that you're asked, you don't feel, is doing an adequate job of communicating. And this is something that Auntie has talked to me a lot about. It's what she opened this discussion with. And I found that with beneficiaries working together, and you'll hear from 4 of them in a little while, or this afternoon, I guess it is, that they can encourage the funds, the pension systems, to be more responsible. But there's no institution that wants to just do what's the right thing on the natural. They all need to be pushed. And I also want to be candid that there's resource questions. I had the benefit early in my work with pension fund trustees to be engaged with CalPERS, which is the largest fund in the country, and they have tremendous resources so that when the unions and the trustees pushed, they were able to respond quickly because they had the resources to do it. And they're at 400 billion. What are you at? What are you? 15 billion? So it's a different world, and you have different resources and ability, but it requires the community to focus, because they're not going to be able to respond to everything, and it requires that they are persistent. And to me, if this is 2 years in the making, then in 2 years, you're going to be able to get a little bit more out of every fund on this island. So.
Imo. Everybody's here. I mean, how many of you in here are union members?
So, do any of the union members have questions? It would be good to hear from you what you're thinking about. Is that microphone around again? I think this. Are you?
I'm from the Ahupuaa Ula.
Oh, Deb.
Aloha, I'm Deb Kaibi, and I have been an HGA member for approximately 34 years. Keho is right in explaining how the union has educated us, union members, in how to invest. However, sitting here with my new friend, I told him,
I didn't do it.
And David is another one you can ask questions of. He knows this stuff too.
I told him, I have a lot to say, but I hope I'm not going to come off negative. And this is what I have to say. Okay, here I go. You guys ready for this?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to say that as a union member, I went to all those trainings and I listened. I'm going to say God, Keapua, gave us all a brain. And He gave us a brain so we can process what we're taking in and how it could apply to ourselves. And I went home one night and I said, where do I live? I live in Maui. And what is Maui? Maui is the best place on earth next to Disneyland, right? And so I said, why don't, instead of me giving them my money to make money for me, why don't I just make money myself? Right? Yeah. And where we live Maui. right? Okay, so what I did, and I just told my new friend over here, and I don't want you guys to have a negative image of me because I'm struggling. I was never the fashion girl. I was the hand-me-down queen. I saved my money. I worked hard. I was a one-income bearing household. I raised 2 children on 1 income. And I saved my money. And I invested in homes. Today I own 3 homes, 2 are paid for. And you can do it too, and that's why I'm running for county council.
That was one of the best dumb speeches I've heard. So you've got some material to work with. I have a caution on that advice that was given, and the caution has to do with the sense of collectivity and community, and how money, which may not be the sole value that you're concerned about in your investments, is actually stronger when it's pulled together into larger groups. So you may have some insight onto this as well.
Like 6 cents. Other than that, it's about asset building when you're looking to get a firm stance, with your family, with your finances, whatever it is. In the Ahupuaa system, assets is not necessarily kala or physical land, We have the other part of it, which is kind of like the spiritual part, the intangible part, but the part that reaps you a lot of benefits, be it someone coming on board to what you want to do, or a movement, or just someone sharing information who's not necessarily in the same realm that you are. But I thank you for your conversation, Mike, and you all.
I would like to go out with you talking a little bit about Hawaii Community Assets and what it does, because I think your concept of wealth is very congruent with this, and people should hear about it.
I deal a lot in the nonprofit world, of which one of the creations was a nonprofit. It's called Hawaiian Community Assets, and what we are a HUD certified home ownership counselor, etc., and all those kind of things. What it is actually trying to capacitize your communities and how to asset build and how to do these little things. We know housing is terribly in a serious crisis. We do focus on Native Hawaiians, therefore Hawaiian homelands, etc., all of that other stuff. But we do work for everyone and anyone in the state of Hawaii. We do first and last for rentals. We do deposit and first-time home buyers, subsidies. So Hawaiian Community Assets, you can look it up. We're running out of time. And anxious because after this I get to do kupuna duty. It's my 5-year-old, so we bow.